Hello everyone, welcome to lecture 7.2, Musical Embodiment and Enactivism. So first of all, what is enactivism? Here are a few definitions and arguments. Enactivism is a position in cognitive science that argues that cognition arises through a dynamic interaction between an acting organism and its environment. It claims that the environment of an organism is brought about or enacted by the active exercise of that organism's sensory-motor processes. The term enactivism is close in meaning to enaction, defined as the manner in which a subject of perception creatively matches its actions to the requirements of its situation. So here, the enactivism emphasizes the process of enaction, the active exercise of the action of the organism onto its environment. Enactivism emphasizes the growing conviction that cognition is not the representation of a pre-given world by a pre-given mind, but is rather the enactment of a world and a mind on the basis of a history of the variety of actions that a being in the world performs. Experience of the world is a result of mutual interaction between the sensory-motor capacities of the organism and its environment. Here are some quotes that explains the enactivism more. The key point is that the species brings forth and specifies its own domain of problems. This domain does not exist out there in an environment that acts as a landing pad for organisms that somehow drop or parachute into the world. Instead, living beings and their environments stand in relation to each other through mutual specification or co-determination. So here, this definition explains the process of interaction. So it's not us, we like born in this world and we adapt to the world merely. There is a mutual specification and co-determination process through a history of variety of dynamic interactions between the organisms and the world. Organisms do not passively receive information from their environments, which they then translate into internal representations. Natural cognitive systems participate in the generation of meaning, engaging in transformational and not merely informational interactions. Namely, they enact a world. So our action, our exercise on the environment, which it enacts a transformational process of perception, but not merely informational. So this is where the name enactivism comes from. So most of the arguments in this lecture are drawn from this reading: Embodied Mind, Situated Cognition, and Expressive Microtiming in African American Music by the music scholar V.G. Ayer. So what is embodied and situated cognition, first of all? The viewpoint known as embodied or situated cognition treats cognition as an activity that is structured by the body situated in this environment, that is, as embodied action. In this view, cognition depends upon exercises based in having a body with sensory motor capacities. These capacities are embedded in an encompassing biological, psychological, and cultural context. So, so our cognition is not only about our internal representation, our brain mechanism, but we also have a body. So our brain is embodied in our body, which is also embodied in our environment and encompassing this complicated biological, psychological, and cultural context. Sensory processes and motor processes, known as perception and action, having evolved together, are seen, therefore, as fundamentally inseparable, mutually informative, and structured so as to ground our conceptual systems. More about embodiment. So, in the view of embodiment, perception is understood as perceptually guided action. Cognitive structures emerge from the recurrent sensory-motor patterns that enable the perceiver to guide his or her actions in the local situation. The emergent learned neural connections between the senses and the motor system form the basis for cognition. So, when we're talking about cognition from this embodied perspective, we not only consider our perception, our senses of the world, but also it incorporates the motor systems, the actions we exercise on the environment. This view provides a sharp contrast from the standard information processing viewpoint, in which cognition is seen as a problem of recovering details of the pre-given outer world. So instead of a passive stimulus-driven feature detector perspective, now based on these embodied arguments, we are perceiving cognition as a dynamic and active interaction of the world and the environment, and they are mutually reinforcing each other. In the embodied viewpoint, the mind is no longer seen as passively reflective of the outside world, but rather as an active constructor of its own reality. So, to theorize and quantize this process of embodied cognition, here is a defining theory called the free energy principle proposed by Carl Friston as a kind of unified brain theory that combines our sensation and action. So in the mathematical description of a free energy principle, it uses the variation of free energy as the learning goal or the learning objective. So if you are familiar with this variational method, variational inference, this is the objective, the variational free energy, or the elbow. Here, so the goal of the agent is to minimize the variational free energy. So to reformulate this formula in two ways, the free energy principle actually takes two paths. One is to optimize the internal representation, which is our to map our internal representation to the external world, to adjust our internal mental representation to the physics or the phenotypes of our environment, which is to change our beliefs to minimize the Q divergence. Another is a more embodied approach, which is to use our action. So we optimize our action to sample the sensations that corresponds to our cognition or to our mental representations. So here we are changing our sensations through sampling through our motor actions to maximize the external evidence. So this theory is a little bit advanced, especially if you want to understand the math here. But it provides a way to kind of study this embodied cognitive science through a more quantitative, statistically or mathematically available approach. Another topic is situatedness. So the body and its environment not only provide constraints, but also enable cognition. Cognition is seen in part as a social phenomenon distributed over mind, body, activity, and cultural context. We rely upon various attributes of our physical, social, and cultural environment to support or augment our mental capacities. So cognition is a encompassing system that's not only about the mind, but about the mind that is embedded in our body and the culture and the society to augment and support our mental capacities. The mind may be viewed as symbiotically embedded not only within its body, but also in that body's environment and structured by its surroundings. So here is another model called action perception loop, which describes this dynamic interaction between the organism and the world. So this model is adopted from this paper, Thinking Through Other Minds, a variational approach to cognition and culture. So this is a really interesting paper talking about how the agents infer each other's minds and how the culture and also about the implicit learning of the culture and also on the cultural niche constructions. So this paper, this process is also described by the free energy principle, by reformulate the free energy principle into action and perception, and this is how they develop their arguments. So here, the agent, on the one hand, the agent changes or act on the environment through its motor actions to construct the cultural niche or to sample the sensations he or she wants. On the other hand, the agent also sample the sensations from the external world. So the external world will convey or send the sensations to the agent, and the agent perceive or received the sensory inputs, and the agent also modifies its internal states, which is more close to or approximate the external states. Um, so so far we talked about the embodied and situated cognition, but how we map this theory into our musical context, musical scenarios. This table uh, gives a rough mapping between our body motion to corresponding musical phenotypes. Um, so this gives us an embodied music perception. So at a low frequency range from 0.1 to 1, which corresponds to musical phrases, uh, which refers to our body motions of breathing, moderate arm gesture, and body sway. At a frequency of 1 to 3 hertz, which is known as tactors, or it, or it is at the level of musical pulses. This is related to our heartbeat, the rate of heartbeat, and sucking, the rhythm of sucking, chewing, walking, sexual intercourse, and head note. So the EDM, the electronic dance music, is falls within this category, and the strong pulses, the strong rhythms created in such type of music actually corresponds to our heartbeat, to our foot stomping, and sexual intercourse and head note, which triggers or elevates of our body responses to these sounds, to these musical pulses, which makes us wanna dance. So at a higher frequency range, 3 to 10 hertz, where the smallest musical salient subdivisions of musical pulse falls within, and also about the fast notated rhythms. So this corresponds to our speech motion, hand gesture, and digital motions, which is at a higher speed, a higher frequency. And if we elevate that frequency range to 10 to 60 hertz, then we are talking about grace notes, deviations, asynchronous, and also the micro timings, which correlates to phoneme and rapid phlegm between fingers or limbs. So these are the kind of the range and the mapping of different musical facts to our physical responses, our body motions. More concrete examples, for example, most wind instruments freeze length are naturally constrained by lung capacity. So this is the how our physical constraints that change or affect the music we make. Tactors heavy urban dance music often makes sonic references to foot stomping and to sexually suggestive slapping of skin. So this falls within the tactors range. That's related to our physical responses and the body body motions. That's how the urban dance music often refers to. Here is a more detailed timescales of music perception. So about auditory stream formation. The Truax mentions the threshold of approximately 50 milliseconds per event, or 20 events per second. Stockhausen also mentions this 1/16 second threshold, which is approximately 62 milliseconds. So this threshold of event detection of approximately 50 milliseconds is the basis for us to perceive and to discretize the auditory stream, the music into abstract or discretized events. Also, the musical texture corresponds to our echoic memory of 0.5 up to 2 seconds. The gesture here corresponds to the table in our last slide, where the breathing, moderate arm gesture by this way corresponds to musical phrases is within 0.1 to 1 hertz. And heartbeat, sucking, chewing, locomotion of musical tactors is within 1 to 3 hertz. And speech motion, hand gesture, and digital motion, which we call tetrum, falls within 3 to 10 hertz. The rhythm, the Euro musical rhythm we refer to, falls within the Texas range here of roughly 300 to 800 milliseconds. And also, in terms of our memories also have this influence on our musical perception. The short-term memory or working memory usually have 5 to 9 items stored uses categorization. So we referred to this previously when talking about the musical scales. This might be one of the reasons why a Euro musical scale contains 5 to 9 divisions. The long-term memory corresponds to episodic, semantic, and procedural memories. Besides the embodied music perception, here is another perception called ecological music perception. All too often, theorists and psychologists have treated musical motion in terms of abstract, time-varying auditory images, while ignoring the motions exerted by the performer. Handel's proposed 3 levels of event awareness. The raw psychophysical perception of tones, the perception of abstract qualities of the tones apart from their source, and finally, the apprehension of environmental objects that give rise to the sound event. So layer by layer, we are more traced back to the roots of the sound. We connect the perception of musical motion at the ecological level to human motion. Musical perception involves an understanding of bodily motion. That is a kind of empathetic embodied cognition. So here, we not only perceive music from this abstract level, we connect it back to its sound source, connect it back to the body motion of the performers. So therefore, we developed a more ecological or empathetic embodied perception of music. In this table, it maps the abstract musical terminologies to a more ecological perspective. So the sounds considered in this abstract musical perception is is changed, is considered as sound sources. And perception became recognition. Abstraction became embodiment. And music, from an ecological perspective, is considered as sonic trees of organized human activity. So this is more embodied and also kind of refers to the music and the musicking, the action of making music, but not the object, the final product of music. And rhythm is considered as human motion. Tempo now refers to the speed of human motion. And the meter is considered as regularity of human motion, which is an invariant of the musical environment. And expressive timing is studied as deviations from invariance. Polyrhythm, now considered as coordinated, contrasting human motions. So now everything is related to human activity, to the human motion. So it's more the music is studied more from a human perspective. The timbre refers to specific instrument, voices, the vocal tract, or the sound source. So here we consider timbre more referred to its roots, to the source, the physical materials that create this sound. Loudness is considered as degree of effort and exertion, and exertion, a number of individuals in unison. Melody is not considered as sustained vocalization. The vocal cord use and long exertion and control. Harmony is considered as interacting sound sources. Form, recurrence, and musical organization is discussed as the events and situational environmental factors. Unison is considered as synchronized action. The compositional time, musical time, now is viewed through the lens of real time in a physical world of human activities. Piece of music composition and score now is studied more as the performance and musical events, which is the process or the action of music making, the musicking, instead of the music in this abstract form. So this table gives us a more detailed mapping, detailed sense of how the ecological musical perception changes our perspective, our understanding of music, and how we can utilize this embodied or situated cognition in the musical context.